Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the final panel discussion of the Swim Ireland #WePlay Series 2020 in partnership with Kinetica and Sport Ireland. And I'm joined by three very familiar faces in sport in Ireland. And today our theme is now looking forwards. And our panelists this afternoon are Nicola Friday, Alton Deland and Mona McSharry. Rugby and swimming, a fantastic mix of athletes joining us for this afternoon's panel. So you're all very welcome to today's show. And to kick us off, I think we'll actually get you guys to introduce yourselves, because I probably won't do you justice in terms of your achievements in sport and what you've done with your sport and your passion for sport over the past number of years. And Mona McSharry, as an international swimmer, I think we'll kick off with you, the hosts of our WePlay series this year.
Hello, I'm Mona McSharry. I'm a European and World Junior Champion and most recently a European Senior Medalist.
And Mona, moving across to Nicola Friday, Connacht Rugby Captain and Irish Rugby player.
Hi, I'm Nicola Friday. I'm an Irish international, Connacht Captain, and I play my club level with OBrien.
Lovely. And then to the only man on the panel today, very strange that we've only got one man on the panel, but it's great to see the men joining us for this fantastic series this year. So Ultan, tell us a little bit about your background in sport.
Hi, I'm Alton Deland. I play rugby for Connacht Rugby. I'm lucky enough to play for Ireland, and hopefully we'll still play for Ireland when we get back training. Yeah, not much else other than that. We won a Pro 12 in 2016. And I've played all the southern hemisphere, with Ireland as well. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So how has life been over the past couple of weeks in the McSharry household? Mona, how have you been getting on at home with your training and your activity?
I'm enjoying it, to be honest. It's very relaxing. Once I got over the whole idea of the Olympics being cancelled and everything, I'm really just enjoying life at the moment, spending a lot of time with my family and keeping fit in different and interesting ways. So yeah, it's been great.
And Nicola, in terms of getting out and playing rugby, have you been able to do much of that at the moment, or are you really just sticking at home and doing some training at home?
Yeah, for me, it's just training at home, doing some gym sessions, running sessions, and trying to get my hands on the ball as much as possible. So grabbing whoever's free at home and bringing them out to the field and making them pass at me for an hour. But that's kind of the extent of it for us at the moment. There's no kind of rugby activity at the moment.
And it is important, Ultan, to keep those taps on the ball when you are playing a ball sport, because you can go and you can run around the field as much as you want and do as much training, core and strength, but really having a tip of the ball is very much important when you're playing a ball sport.
Yeah, absolutely. You get rusty pretty quick, especially in this unfortunate pandemic. We're all a bit removed from our sport, so it's getting a bit weird. But for us personally, our coaches are on the phone to us every odd week, trying to make sure we're linking together and staying on top of our skills and all that. And so there's been a lot of input from their end. But I mean, we're all bored at home, so it's easy to do the most we can to try and improve ourselves.
And of course, today's theme is now looking forwards. But before we look forward, I want to look backwards a little bit and see how you got to where you are today. And maybe, Ultan, we'll start with you, because you started out your journey in Paris, moved to Kerry, and now you're in Galway. So you've been all over the place. But how have you ended up playing for Connacht here with us in Galway?
Yeah, I suppose I started my rugby in Tralee in Kerry. I picked it up when I was 12. I got my first selection towards Westminster when I was 15, 16. And then from there on, that was where the dream kind of started. I wanted to be a professional after that. Then I played Irish youths for when I was 17, and that's where I met the first Connacht coach in Jimmy Duffy, who was involved with the Connacht Rugby Academy. And I was fortunate enough to get selected for Irish 19s, where I met Nigel Carolan, the academy manager at the time. And then for the under 20 season, I knew Munster had kind of cut me the year before, so I was thinking it was a bit iffy, maybe trying to put all my eggs in that basket. And I had Nigel Carlin on the phone saying, you have a 3-year academy contract if you come to Galway. It was such a hard decision to make at that age, because I just wanted to help out at home, but I didn't want to leave my friends that were going to UCC or UL and all that. And luckily, I got some good advice from some agents, some free advice, and in the end, it was the best decision I ever made. Yeah, and I ended up needing the 3 years of security as well, because I was unfortunate with injuries, but eventually it came right. I put on some weight, and I got my first professional cap against Leinster.
So Mona, you've had an unorthodox start to swimming, really, because is it true that you nearly drowned in the deep end of a pool as a child?
Yeah, when I was younger, I did nearly drown. I was always surrounded kind of by the water and being in and out of the sea, but I didn't know how to swim until I was 5. So yeah, I did fall into the deep end one day and I nearly drowned, but thankfully I didn't, and I'm a great swimmer today because of it. So yeah, my parents kind of decided after that point that it was time to get lessons.
So you got lessons, and then you spent quite a lot of time and dedication getting to the level that you're at today. So talk us through maybe some of the training or some of the commitment and hours that you would have to have put through to get onto that international stage as a swimmer from Ireland.
Yeah, I guess like any other swimmer, it started off like a hobby pretty much, and then it just built from there until I was training kind of morning and night before and after school. So that was tough, trying to balance kind of like your school studies and everything with swimming, because it is a lot of hours. But I made it through it, and now I'm able to train without any studies in the way. So and I had a really good junior career, so all happy.
And of course, you've now moved into the senior ranks, and it's a big jump from junior to senior when you're racing at that level.
Yeah, definitely. I think I didn't anticipate how much of a jump it would be, especially with how well I did in my last year as a junior, winning the 5 medals from Europeans to Worlds, and then kind of coming into senior and being at the bottom again. It was just a strange place to be, especially I just had so many expectations put on myself to do well, but you do have to work through it again, which is what I did, and it took me a good 2 to 3 years. So yeah, I'm just continuously building pretty much.
And I'm going to jump over to you, Nichola, because you've had quite a quick rise to fame, really, within your career as a rugby player. I believe it was college was when you actually started playing rugby for the very first time. So talk us through how you've gone from, I suppose, non-rugby player to now captain of Connacht and also an Irish capped player.
I suppose I kind of always loved sports growing up, and all through school I would have played hockey and played it to kind of a high enough level. Like I played with Kilkenny College, and we went to the Kate Russell, which is the All Irelands. I went twice, I think, in my last 2 years in school. So team sports was kind of always something I really enjoyed. I kind of suppose fell out of love with hockey then when I went to college, and it was kind of nearly out of boredom. I said, you know what, I'll head into Tullamore, my local rugby club, and just take up rugby for the crack, more like the social scene than anything else. And then it was probably about 2 years into playing rugby, I got selected for the Connacht team, and then I subsequently got my first cap before I even got capped for Connacht. So it kind of all happened very, very quickly for me. But I knew once I started playing rugby that it was the sport that I absolutely loved. I loved every element of it, and I haven't really looked back since.
And what is it about the sport that fuels your passion? Is it the team side of things? Is it the actual sport itself? Or what is it that just keeps you wanting to go out on that pitch and drive for more?
It's definitely, I think the team is definitely the big part of it. Like if you have a good core bunch of players, like the sessions and the training and the matches you can get out of each other, like it's unbelievable. And then it was also just the love of the sport. Like I always would have grown up watching it, watching all the matches on telly and stuff, and we would have went to a few matches when I was younger, so I always had that interest in it. And then whenever it kind of became an option for me to play it, like I just didn't take a step back.
And I see you nodding your head there as well, Ultan, with regards to that question. In terms of driving the passion for the sport, I see you nodding your head with regards to that team setup, which is obviously hugely important, both on and off the pitch.
Yeah, it's massive. That and family is kind of everything. Like for me, when I left Kerry for Galway, the immediate difference I felt was, it was the first week I joined the Connacht 20s, and I went from a setup where S&C coaches drove to Tralee to train with me one-on-one for most of the year, and then I would meet up with the team I'd play with in summer for the 19s or the 20s or the 18s, and I was so removed from everyone. Whereas my first week in Galway, you're immediately in a student village living with the under 20s. You have to do initiations as a team. You go out and train. You do weights together. You eat together. Sleep in the same houses. And it was unreal. And then obviously to play at the end of that summer was brilliant. But obviously the academies then is the same thing. You build a kind of a family in that setup. And moving on to the seniors, it's the exact same thing. It's what drives us. You want to play for each other every week.
And then I suppose when you're playing with such a tight-knit group within the Connacht team, and then you move up maybe, Nicola, to the international team, you're playing with rugby players that are part of the Irish squad that you've been battling against, like at an interprovincial level. So how do you build that same team camaraderie at the Irish level versus what you have at a Connacht level?
I think whenever you get up to the Irish setup, like everyone's kind of prime focus is the green jersey, because everyone wants to be putting that on when it comes to match time. So you put aside all those kind of provincial rivalries that you have between each other, and it's like a sole focus on just making sure that we're the best team that we can be whenever we step out onto the pitch. So like there's a big kind of focus on it. We have a saying, me, we. So it's not about the me, it's about the we. And that's kind of the culture that has been installed in the Irish setup.
Which is hugely important. And then you move across to the likes of your sport, Mona, where it's very much the me is the we, because everything relies on you and what performance you put out individually when you step onto the block to start swimming. So who's in your team then, Mona, that supports you and that you build that camaraderie or that support around you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I'm super lucky that I have such a close relationship with my coach. I've been working with her since I was about 8 years old. She's more like a best friend before she's my coach at this point. We've done so many one-on-one sessions. I'm from a place where I train with a really small club, and in the last 2 years I pretty much just trained with her, so it's just me and her all the time. So yeah, I haven't got a huge grasp on competing or working with a huge team, because I've never had that. But the small team I have, includes my family, my coach, my best friends, and that's the best team I could ask for. And I think that's why I stayed training from home for so long, because it just works so well for me being with people that understand me so well. But I'm really, really lucky that next year I'll be going to college in America and I'll be on a huge team, which is something I'm not used to, but I'm really, really excited to see kind of how that would drive me forward, competing not only for myself, but also for a team. So I'm really, really excited to experience that.
And that's a huge opportunity for you to build on your experience, both personally and professionally, and a big highlight, I imagine, coming into 2021. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the lowlights maybe, and how you've overcome some of the challenges that you've faced in your career as well. And I'm looking at Ultan here. I want to come back down to where you spoke about that move from Munster to Connacht, and how you've dealt with maybe some injuries or some disappointments you've had along the way in your career.
Yeah, I suppose injuries are kind of they're part of the job. I'd say Nichola knows well. It's what you sign up for when you're going to do a contact sport. I was very fortunate that I signed an academy contract with Connacht, because you can't foresee injuries coming. But as it turned out, I didn't make the Irish under 20s. That I was gutted, but luckily I had the contract side security. And at the very last game of that season, it was a promotional game for our Division 2A team, Corinthians, sorry, the rivals of the Galwegians. We got promoted in that game, but on the last play, I damaged this shoulder quite badly. It's constantly raised actually, but and that took away like almost two seasons away from me. And like if I hadn't had my 3-year contract, I would have been up in the air really, and I may never have played pro. So there's definitely a big element of luck with professional career. Some players don't get half as injured, and others are very prone. Yeah, I could definitely say I was quite lucky.
And Nicola, would you have, I suppose, ways of overcoming sort of the disappointment, or tools that you would use to maybe help your mind focus when you get injured, or when you face disappointments of lost matches, or when things kind of go wrong? You know, what sort of techniques would you use, really, I suppose, to help overcome some of those disappointments?
Yeah, I think whenever it comes to kind of personal disappointments, you have to really reflect back on yourself, so your training sessions, your performances, and you kind of have to start looking at those in more depth and seeing like areas that you can kind of improve. So like this season, my selection wouldn't have went my way with Ireland and during the Six Nations, and it was quite tough for me, and I found like I couldn't really switch off from it. And what I did was I just tried to focus on kind of what I could do instead of what I couldn't really control. So in terms of whenever we had our training sessions, I focused on just solely putting in a performance that kind of I was happy with, and you kind of just take it step by step kind of from there. Just you nearly have to just focus back on yourself for a little bit and get yourself right before you can start back into like pushing on towards like the team in the team environment.
And it can be hard to push through some of that negative feeling and negative thought as well, can't it?
Yeah, like it's very hard for it not to consume your every single thought, because it's what you live and breathe during the season. Like it consumes every thought, so it's very hard to switch off whenever something like that kind of happens. But luckily, like having a good family and having friends that can kind of support you, like they're like kind of invaluable in those kind of situations, because they kind of nearly like they pull you through it, because it can be quite tough.
And then Mona, I suppose really when you were on the starting block for a race, it's you and you only. You know, how do you deal with the pressure of that? At least the guys have, you know, their teammates, and there's always somebody to pick up the slack maybe on the rugby pitch if there's a mistake made. There's other players on the pitch, but if it doesn't go your way in the pool, it's only you. So how do you deal with that pressure on race morning or just before a race?
Well, just before a race, I try and switch off to an extent. I listen to music and almost not distract myself, just try and focus any nervous energy I have, because at that point, like, all the work is done, so you're gonna do what you're gonna do, so you just have to believe that you can race your best pretty much. And that's kind of, I just try and go into every race knowing that I'm gonna put 110% in, and then whatever I come out with, I just have to be happy with it. It's all I could give on the day. But it's very tough when you feel like you've put in all this hard training, which every athlete does, and then you get to the blocks and you do a race and you're just not happy with and what time you've gotten, and you feel like you could do so much better and you just don't know why. So I've found that really challenging over the last kind of 3 years, because it's become a lot more difficult to drop time and to get that little bit faster. And I feel like I'm doing all that I can, but it's just always about analysing races and trying to figure out how you can move forward and be a better racer.
So we know now that our restrictions have been lifted. They were lifted on Monday, and they're easing of the restrictions here with regards to the coronavirus. So how is life going to change for you now in terms of your training and your activities? Will you be able to get outside a bit more? Will you start training? Will you get back on the road to being, I suppose, match and race fit for the future? And maybe Ultan, we'll go to you first with that question.
Yeah, I suppose it'll change mainly on a conditioning kind of point, because a lot of people were without a patch of grass to run on and with the guidelines in place and everything, it was kind of real limited. Some guys got to like make 4 meter by 4 meter squares and got real creative with how they could train their endurance. With the restrictions being lifted, our S&Cs will just cater a bit more to us having more space to run, and with that our training can get a bit more intense and more rugby specific, because I think everyone's been doing these 5K challenges on the road, and I mean they're great for some people, but like me personally, being 150 kilos trying to run 5K would kill me. So and I think one of the players in our squad got a foot injury, so our medical staff kind of went a bit mad there, saying not to do any more challenges like that. So I think they'll be a bit happy that the restrictions have been lifted.
I see the two girls are laughing there, Ultan, at the thought or the sight of you running a 5K and trying to do a 5K challenge. Nicola or Mona, have you taken on any challenges, or have you learned any new skills that are going to help your performance when you get back to racing and competing?
I did the 5K cat challenge, and I'm not going to be repeating it anytime soon. Don't think it's made for second rows. But I've been challenged to a 50K cycle as well, but I can't see that happening either. I'm not going to sit on a bike for that long. But in terms of skills, like we just all had to adapt the last few weeks. Our S&C is really good. Orla Kern, she's made a bit of a competition, so our squad's been split up into teams, and every week we have a new competition, and it's a leaderboard kind of situation. So this week was kind of agility kind of drills, and you could get points for how quick you could react to things. So that's how kind of we as a squad have been kind of keeping sharp. So it's just kind of things like that kind of keeping us ticking over.
And Mona, in my area in triathlon, swimming is the biggest barrier to entry to sport, and a lot of the athletes that are at home have been either getting paddling pools and doing a bit of swimming, or getting resistant bands, or trying to keep their, I suppose, their swim fitness in a certain way. How have you been able to keep your fitness peaking, or I suppose keep your fitness up while we've been in lockdown?
I've been doing a lot of running, which I liked at the start, but I don't like anymore. My body is complaining now, so I definitely want to get back in the water. I have hopped into the sea once or twice just to do a bit of sculling and stuff to keep the connection there. But honestly, I'm kind of happy to have the break, because we do so many hours in the pool, and I haven't really taken a break over 2 weeks in the last 6 years. So I'm just taking the break and hoping I'll be mentally fresh for the next season ahead and able to train harder. So I'll just, chill out of the water for a while now, I think.
So now that we do have a downtime, or I suppose we've had a downtime for quite a while, what have you done that's been out of your regular routine? Have you been resting more? Have you been taking up a new hobby? What Netflix have you been watching, or what have you been doing, Nicola, aside from your strength and conditioning and your professional work as a rugby player?
I've watched a lot of Netflix. This time off, like we kind of wouldn't have experienced it. I now know kind of what a weekend is now again. I know what a Saturday and a Sunday feels like. But I've started, like, I've taken up like a bit of cooking and kind of stuff like that, but like nothing very exciting. I think it's very much the same as everyone in the country, a lot of Netflix.
It's funny that you mentioned getting a weekend, or knowing what a weekend is back, Ultan, because that Nicola says, because there's a lot of sacrifice to be made when you are an athlete at the level that you guys are at. There's a lot of sacrifices. There's a lot of things that you miss out on. So what have you most enjoyed about the period of time that we have been in lockdown for the last few weeks?
Just how much time you have to do things. I'm thinking about doing such a grown-up thought, designing my back garden now in the new house, which I'm just trying to plan financially how much it could cost, and trying to factor in a shed and a raised bed and all these things. But like I've all the time in the world to do it now. One of the boys that plays with us, Sean O'Brien, he's after finishing his own garden, so he's kind of pushing me to get mine on the way. But just how much time you have for like your hobbies and stuff. I used to play a good bit of guitar when I was younger, so every day I'm playing over an hour of guitar, even though like it wouldn't be great, like with the normal rugby schedule and all the other things going on, it's not something you do on a normal routine, I suppose. I cook a good bit more as well, which is good, I think, instead of eating ways or anything like that.
And Mona, what about you in the downtime? Have you been doing stuff outside of your normal routine?
Honestly, I don't feel like I have a lot of spare time, strangely enough. I did take this year out anyway, so apart from training and napping and eating, I wasn't really doing a lot extra. So the only thing that's changed is I'm not driving to the pool now, I'm just training at home. I do a lot of jigsaw puzzles and stuff. When I got sick last year and had time off, my mum bought me a load of them, and I'm redoing all of them upstairs at the moment. So I could just sit there for about 4 or 5 hours and do that. So that's kind of how I'm spending my time. Nothing exciting, really.
And in terms of the Olympics, Mona, were you disappointed that they were, I suppose, shelved for this year and pushed out to next year? Or do you see it as an opportunity for you to get fitter and stronger?
Well, I guess I was definitely disappointed because I had a whole plan in place and I was really excited. You know, when you dream about something for so long and then it's coming so close, of course, it is a pity to have it pushed back a year. But, you know, I was either thinking they were going to be cancelled completely or they were going to be moved. So the fact that they were moved and not cancelled is a blessing, really. And I still get to do them. It's just going to be a year later. So I'm happy with it now. It did take me a while to get over it, obviously, but just, yeah, moving on and hoping that I'm going to be stronger and fitter next year.
And for young people who are watching the episode today, Mona, what can we do to encourage them to take up swimming and to get involved in sport at a young age? Because a lot of athletes have the dream of the Olympics, but, you know, there's only a handful of people will get to do it, really, when you consider the population of the world.
Yeah, I didn't realize how many opportunities swimming would give me. The trips I've gone on, the friends I've made, even from a really young age, even the people you get to meet all over the country of Ireland if you never leave the country for swimming is just great. It's just like an extra, and even I found it really good with junior cert and leaving cert, keeping my mind distracted, even if I had 2 or 3 hours of the day where I knew I was training and I wasn't concentrating on studies or exams. So I find it really good for even balancing schoolwork or any other stresses in your life. Sport is just great, really. It's all about opportunities and it gives you so many.
And Nicola, I want to come to you and touch on this subject a little bit as well, because rugby has enjoyed a big surge in the women's side of the game for the past couple of years due to the phenomenal results that the Irish women have had in recent years. And we see the hockey as well are doing really well. So there's a lot more women getting involved in sport, and obviously 20 by 20 in Sport Ireland and that whole campaign as well. But I want to ask you, you know, for rugby, encouraging young girls into rugby, what can we do to break down the barriers to get them into the sport?
I think like there's already a really good structure in place. Like I think if you drive into nearly any club in the country on a Saturday morning, you'll see like under 8s, under 10s, under 12s, all girls. And it's starting to be brought more into like the primary schools by all the provinces and stuff like that. And it's kind of things like that, just exposing it to them at a younger age, like, because I kind of wouldn't have even known about it when I was in primary school. Like I never knew that like rugby would be a sport for girls. And the fact that all the provinces are going in now and getting in and playing rugby with the girls and the boys, I think it's just making them more aware from a younger age. And there's those pathways now that are more visible for girls. So like you have your under 18s and like provincial teams and then your senior teams. So like there's a definite kind of stepping stone for girls to see, like they can see if they play well in club, they can go try out for provinces, and then from provinces they can get brought into the Ireland setup. So I do think it is there, and I think just more and more coverage of women's sport will just only grow the sport more.
And do you ever come across any bits of, like, I suppose, gender inequality across your own sport? Or, you know, do you think now is there a big push really on getting women into sport, and there's a lot more opportunity for girls and women to take up the sport regardless of their age or ability or even their aspiration?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like I suppose like even when I would have started rugby, I would have had people being like, God, rugby's not really a sport for girls. And I think that kind of mentality has definitely shifted in the last few years, like from like the matches getting televised and small things like that. Like I think it makes it more like visible for people to see. And I just definitely think that like it is getting more recognition, and even for women's sport, like the big brands like Lidl and brands like Aldi and places like that getting involved is just only growing the exposure more.
So, Ultan, we're chatting really about getting women into sport, but we also need to encourage young men into sport as well. And obviously, there's a huge stronghold for the GAA in Ireland, but there's so many other sports as well, like rugby, swimming, triathlon, cycling, gymnastics, huge amount of sports. So, from a male perspective, what do you think we can do to encourage more people to take up sport or to get involved in physical activity? Because it doesn't have to be a team sport, it doesn't have to be a scheduled sport, but just to encourage people to get active and to even go and play.
Yeah, I think similar enough to what Nichola got to there. I think it's kind of changed from the past years. Like if I go back to Kerry, for instance, to Tralee, there's tennis sports, for instance, where there wouldn't have been 10 years ago, you know, or it would have been a bit before that. And in my secondary school, there's awards for badminton. When I went to present awards to the school for their first years, there was loads of sports that hadn't been there when I was a student. And I think that's where it all starts really, and then clubs build from there and so on. But the structures are definitely in place, and I won't be surprised in a few years when Irish athletes from different divisions emerge. You know.
And looking back at your own career, Ultan, what would you say would have been the biggest highlights so far?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say winning the Pro 12. It was massive. It was incredible. The support that we had away from home was huge. Yeah, it has to be that. That's my number one highlight. Beat New Zealand in Chicago was also massive. Yeah, there's a lot of highs. I'm very, very lucky.
What's it like standing in the middle of the rugby pitch after winning a game to secure the Pro 12 or, you know, beating Chicago? I mean, what is that feeling?
It was unbelievable. I don't know how else to put it. The Pro 12 was class because as the bus arrived to Murrayfield, it wasn't the Leinster had access to the tickets a week prior to us, or a couple of days prior to us anyway. So they bought loads of the tickets, they bought loads of the flights, but it didn't stop the Connacht fans and from booking all the ferries over and whatever. You know, they had such a long trip to get there. And as our bus pulled up, it was just a sea of green everywhere, just drums going off. It was so emotional before we even stepped off the bus. It was an incredible game. And yeah, the final whistle was just seeing the likes of the veterans like Andrew Brown and Ronan Loughney being all emotional, and how we got to fly the squad out to watch from the crowd, and they all got to fly the pitch out. It was unreal. It was class.
Yeah, go on, talk about New Zealand.
Yeah, that was a different game than to obviously the Pro 12, because it's your nation. It was, again, your home advantage away from home, as they like to say. And New Zealand were that team that had an 18-game winning streak. They looked like they were never going to be defeated. And then just like that, while we were playing them, they could score within like 2 minutes of having the ball. It was such a scary game to come on to play off the bench for myself. I was terrified because they only needed the ball for like under 4 minutes to score a try and put you under the pump. But the support was so big that day that you could barely hear anything on the pitch, because the roar from the crowd was so loud. And when the final whistle blew again, it was the first time we'd ever beaten New Zealand. It was pretty cool.
And of course, the first time you ever do anything, Nichola, is always going to be a very special moment. So that first time you pulled on the Irish jersey and got your first cap for Ireland, describe that feeling of coming out onto the pitch and playing your first ever game.
Yeah, like that's kind of one of the memories that will probably stick with me for forever. Like it was in the UCD Bowl, so I just remember walking down the steps, and like my main focus was don't slip, because I was in studs trying to walk on concrete. But like then singing the national anthem, like it's hard to kind of describe nearly, like, because it's something amazing that you kind of only ever dream about. You don't ever think that maybe one day it would be a kind of reality. And then having my family there, like, that kind of really made the day special for me, having them in the stands.
Nicola, what would be your highlight to date?
My highlight probably would be my first cap. It was against Canada, that in November, I think 2016. And it's a game I kind of hardly remember. Like, I don't remember any like defining moments within the match, but I just remember thinking this level is kind of out of this world, and I just knew that I wanted to keep pushing to make sure that I got to experience it more.
And Mona, in the swimming pool, obviously it's a smaller stadium, I suppose, natural stadium, than it would be for the likes of the Aviva or some of those big international stadiums where the rugby is played. But the crowd, when they get behind you in the pool, it must be incredible to hear the cheers for Ireland, to hear the cheers for you as you step onto the blocks and then go and swim. How much of a boost does that crowd support give you when you're standing there ready to start?
Oh, it's undescribable. Like, the difference between racing in a silent stadium or pool, which I've done before, and then racing when you've got a whole crowd behind you is just it really pushes you. Even when there's really close races, I remember, you can't hear a lot in the water, but you can hear if the crowd are going crazy and there's a tight finish coming up, you'll know it, because you can hear the crowd going mad. And that really just pushes you to get to the wall that little bit faster, because there's someone right there beside you, or catching you. And it's really enjoyable. There's nothing, even being in a crowd and doing, cheering for someone else, there's nothing better than that feeling of just hearing everyone behind a certain athlete or a certain team. It's just great.
Well, thank you so much to the three of you for joining us today. We've had a fantastic chat over the past while, and I want to wish you the very best of luck with all of your sporting endeavours as we progress out of COVID-19 and back to our new normality, whatever that may bring. But best of luck to you all. To Nicola, Mona and Ultan, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for the final episode of the Swim Ireland We Play series.